which specific part usually slips out of control first?
Most founders and CEOs assume that sales execution is the issue, and it's not. It's more so now than ever about being laser focused. Sales cycles are longer because there's hesitation in the market.
What was your single hardest leadership call that you had to take to continue this growth?
Letting go of people that I cared about and sitting across the room from somebody, when that happens, it's not pleasant. The highs that you have in a sales career are like none other. But on those lows, what gets me through with the discipline? That 100 million pipeline means nothing. It may as well be 10. They're great at getting companies to 10 million, but those individuals sometimes don't make sense to continue on that path. They were going to replace their business development representatives with AI. And I said, no.
This is Sales Champion, the podcast where real sales leaders talk openly about what it actually takes to win in today's market. Hosted by Dan Lesavatsky, and today joined by Terri Denver, sharing perspective, experience, and the thinking behind high-performance sales. Welcome to Sales Champion.
Terri, thank you for joining. So really glad to see you here.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for inviting me. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, so my first question is, so say when companies hit, 10 to 50 million revenue mark, and they reach out to you, what's usually already quite broken? So even maybe if they are not ready to name it yet.
Yeah, it's kind of that stage of a company where they're coming away, or they need and they want to come away from founder-led sales. And they've got them to 10 million, which is absolutely fantastic, but they really need to let the sales team take over from those founder-led sales. So how do they do that? So normally what's broken is, broken's quite a tough word, I wouldn't use that. Sometimes they haven't implemented what needs to be implemented in the foundations to get them to the next stage. The company's growing up, it's becoming something else in its life, in its stage of life, and what does it need? So the first thing really is putting and helping them put that infrastructure in place. And that's just not around the sales organization, but that's looking at the whole go-to-market strategy, really honing in on their ICP, ideal customer profile, their targeted market, and where those ICPs are, the personas who they're selling to, and what problems they're solving. If there's always a pain point, and what are those pain points? What are those problems? And really honing in. So coming away from that kind of scattergun approach, which has got them to 10 million, and really being very targeted, very specific about their go-to-market strategy and aligning the sales team. And normally at that stage, there's also a lack of some data as well. Again, not broken, but they don't have the metrics and the data points that they need in order to really understand who and where and what they're selling to and what pain points. So that's where, again, I come in and help them put those processes in place, lay those foundations, the fundamentals in place in order for them to scale. It's got to get to that repeatable stage. And you can only get to a repeatable stage if you know and you have that data, that information at your hand.
Yeah, so and this brings us to the question. So once they kind of start the scaling process, so which specific part usually slips out of control first? Yeah, so you would like to collect all the numbers, right? But what is the problematic area? Is it like maybe the pipeline visibility, forecasting, maybe some day-to-day behavior? So what is the most painful thing?
Yeah, all of those. I would say there's forecasting, pipeline, lack of understanding of the pipeline or the accuracy of that pipeline. In other words, you could have a pipeline of 100 million, but if that 100 million isn't aligned to your ideal customer profile, and more so now than ever, I've seen, it doesn't matter what industry, if you don't have a pipeline that is matched to your ideal customer profile and that is serving those pain points and solving the problems, then that 100 million pipeline means nothing. It may as well be 10. It's around, like I said, being very, very focused, very targeted with your approach. And you can only do that if you're being very diligent about your pipeline and ensuring that it is absolutely focused on your ideal customer profile. I'll give you an example. One client that I was working with, they have 3 areas of their business that they're focused on, and small, medium-sized businesses, and then medium-sized divided into 2. And yet part of their marketing campaigns was still focusing on enterprise, but they couldn't deliver on enterprise. So everything that was in their pipeline that was enterprise level meant nothing. It was useless, which equated to 25% of their pipeline that meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's some this balance, right? So in marketing, they
Correct.
do one thing, and in sales, they do something different. Yeah.
Correct. And that also goes back to product, because if their product is not aligning with those enterprise deals and they can't deliver on that,
Oh, yeah.
right? So it affects,
sense,
yeah,
yeah.
it affects the whole organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, early in your career, so what did you strongly believe about sales that later you realized was completely off?
Yeah. Well, if I go back and change things, goodness, hindsight. I guess I truly believe that intensity and effort were the key differentiators. And of course, like, I worked incredibly hard. And of course, it does. You do have to work incredibly hard. I'm not saying that you don't. You do. And I cared very deeply. And I kind of assumed that if I wanted things badly enough, results would follow. But what I later learned was that effort without, as I mentioned, structure, you can't scale. And it really exhausts people. So that's why it is so important. And it does break, and then that breaks trust. It will break. If you don't have that structure around you as a sales person and a sales organization, again, you could work, 36 hours a day and it would not get you the results that you needed. So it was around structure. And I would also say training. Training is absolutely critical for salespeople. I was very fortunate where I started my career in corporate at Sony and Disney, and I was trained from day one. So I was very, very, very fortunate and very privileged to have that. But again, it's having that training, that structure in place, not just the hard work. Those two together.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so do you have a moment in your career where you see that the revenue is kind of climbing, it's growing, right? But at the same time, you understand that, those pieces of the process are just, falling apart and something goes wrong.
Yeah, it normally happens when something kind of slips, I guess. It normally happens when you're scaling a team, you're scaling an organization. And that could be within your region or it could be international. And one size doesn't fit all, that's one thing. And once you put the processes in place and that infrastructure in place, that doesn't mean that it stays that way forever. As I mentioned before, when companies grow and they take on another shedding of their life and they continue to flourish, or if they need to continue to flourish, the infrastructure and the foundations that were once in place have to be changed, have to be revised. They're not static, they're dynamic. And so if a company doesn't, and that was the people as well. That goes with those individuals. I think we've all either looked ourselves in the mirror or seen some of our colleagues where they're great at getting companies to 10 million, or they're great at $150 million companies plus. But those individuals sometimes don't make sense to continue on that path. So it's really about being honest with yourself, honest with your company, and realizing that what worked 5 years ago isn't going to work for the next 5 years.
That's interesting. So, and seeing this development, so what was your, maybe the single hardest leadership call or decision that you had to take, right? So in order to continue this growth?
Yeah, I think it's, recognizing or change, and people find change hard, that you have to change if you are to, like I said, continue to grow successfully and flourish. But letting go of people that I cared about, or people that I generally cared about and that I knew that they couldn't scale or take the business where it needed to go. That was some of the really hardest decisions. And those decisions have never got easy and they never will. You become clearer about your responsibility as a sales leader to that entire system, not just those individuals. So for sure, yeah, absolutely. That's the toughest.
People decision.
Very difficult. You're affecting somebody's life and sitting across the room from somebody, when that happens, it's not pleasant.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So there is one thing is motivation, right? So and you mentioned it today as well, right? So you're the way how you would like, how much effort you would like to put. But there is another thing is the discipline, right? Do you think that this is kind of the general idea in the market, or is it something unique to your approach, or you notice that other sales professionals in the market, they also prioritize discipline over the motivation?
Gosh, yeah. For me, motivation is more emotional, an emotional response, I believe. And it can come and go. I think we're all human, right? We go through changes and events in our life. But discipline is what shows up on those hard days, right? When your energy is low and the pressure is high. And, that discipline for me kind of compounds over time. And it gets you through those tough days. Sales, one of the reasons why I've stayed in this world my entire career is because sales is the highs and the lows. And I quite enjoy that myself personally. But on those lows, what gets me through? Well, the discipline. I go back to my default, my discipline, my routine. What have I got to do, right, in order to get the results that I need? And that's what's really, really saved me during my career. Like I said, when I've had the down days, and that motivation for one reason or another isn't where it should be.
So it's actually not versus, right? It's plus. So it's like discipline plus motivation.
Discipline plus motivation, yeah, because of those peaks and troughs that you get in. The highs that you have in a sales career are like none other. They're mind blowing. You wouldn't replace them for anything in the world. But equally are those lows, and that's when you need to be really disciplined.
Yeah.
To get you through.
Yeah. I've been in so many similar situations. So, getting to what you do now. So, why are more and more companies are turning to fractional sales leaders or fractional marketing leaders, right? Instead of hiring full-time, VPs of CROs. So, what is the market here?
Yeah, I mean, the fractional role, as you probably know, started really with CFOs, right, in the financial role, and still very big. And then it grew to operations and marketing and sales. So why do companies take on fractional expertise? Well, normally the fractional leadership are at a certain stage in their life, and those companies they need outcomes, and they need outcomes within a certain time frame. And what fractional leadership does, it brings the patterns, recognition, and speed and objectivity without the I'm going to say ego because that's the wrong word, but sometimes without that cost. And when I say cost, I mean with all the benefits that would go with a full-time employee, or perhaps the company's just too early to hire that C-suite. So they're getting all the plus and the experience and the knowledge and the I'm going to use the word discipline that those individuals have built up over their career without the full-time hire, right?
Yeah.
And in some of my fractional roles, I've actually helped those companies replace me, right? So, I'm not here forever, but, you need a CRO, so let's find you a CRO. Now we've got you to that certain stage. So I think it's a couple of reasons why I think that expertise really works at companies that are at a certain stage, or business units within large organizations.
Yeah.
There's another area where a fractional would absolutely fit.
That's true. So some parts of the business that need more attention and more expertise, they may benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very giving role, Dan. It's a very stewardship role. I believe in paying it forward. And one of the reasons I stepped into this was, my career has been absolutely fantastic. It's taken me all over the world. And how can I help that next generation of sales leaders? And for me, it's doing fractional work.
Can you tell us maybe a story from your career when that was a no-brainer for one of your customers? So how this happened with how they came to the idea that they need it and why they decided to work with you? Maybe a little bit story here would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my clients last year, they kind of a typical scenario like I just described. They founder-led sales, even though they had salespeople, but the founder was still bringing in the majority of the business. And it was very hard for him to let go, which is very common also. They were scattered. They changed direction often. They weren't really focused, like I said earlier, on a specific ICP or ICPs in a certain area of their business. And so they didn't have some of that structure, that infrastructure in place. They had a CRM, but some of the data points weren't either there or they weren't using them. So they were missing some of the information. And so for myself coming in as CRO, I also brought in, I had no marketing, no RevOps, and no SDRs. So I immediately brought in a marketing expert for their industry. I hired a RevOps expert. I also hired an SDR. So I'm kind of putting the building blocks in place. It's building an engine and building a machine that can help them get to that repeatable state, which the CEO and founder, his words, didn't have that knowledge and expertise to do so. He wasn't doing CEO things, i.e. looking for a next round of funding. It was Series B. He was doing sales and he wanted out of sales. So how do we help him come away from sales, get him doing what he wants to do as a CEO, which is looking for the next round of investment and elevating the team to be successful. So it's putting the right people in the right places, looking at the structure that they had in place, working with product and honing in on those markets, those ICPs, the personas, and then spreading that out through the organization.
Yeah, thank you. So you've been in this AI space as well, right? So and you definitely aware, and you're in the Bay Area, so it's like
Right.
the main place on the planet where AI happens. So, but still, so there are so many amazing things that is happening there. But where do you see that humans are completely replaceable by those machines in the sales processes?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this so many times. When one of my clients in 2024 said to me they were a fintech company, they were going to replace their business development representatives with AI. And I said, no, absolutely. I mean, well, you can if you want, right? It's up to you. But you are at risk of blowing up your total addressable market, your TAM, if you do that. It's not ready. It just isn't. Can that tool be used to give you cast a wider net? Yes, absolutely it can. But it should not go unsupervised. Let's fast forward to 2020 and the end of 2025. And that particular client that I spoke of earlier, where we're trying to get the founder CEO away from sales, I hired a human SDR and with a lot of experience. And my other recommendation was double that up with AI SDR, because now they're ready. And I made recommendations of 3 that would integrate with their CRM. But that AI agent can work alongside your SDR, and she trains that model with the scripts, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said earlier, that gives you, because they were a global company, that casts your net much further than she can as a human being, because it's going to be around in European time zones when she's asleep. That would be my recommendation, that it's her assistant, her buddy, that works with her, that she's built the scripts for.
Yep.
So I went from, within 12 months where it's like, oh, don't do it just yet, wait, to have it as a companion with your human SDR to give you that much broader reach in the marketplace.
Yeah. So, should it be right to say that humans become more like architects of the processes, right? So, like teachers to train AI components to do some specific work.
Correct. In sales, yes. In marketing, that's probably a little bit further, I would say. But having said that, I still, talking to my fractional CMOs in my network and marketeers, there's still a coach in a lot of aspects. But from a sales perspective, what do humans want? We want humans. And when you're sitting having a negotiation and you're at that stage where, do I trust this person to partner with me to solve the problems that I need solving? It's a human being sitting in front of another human being.
Yeah, absolutely. That's about trust, right? So, and
Trust, yes.
That's a different thing. What part of your personality or maybe some natural instincts did you have to hold back in order to become the kind of sales leader you are today?
Gosh, my personality. I would say when I first started my career, I was a very scrappy, I was very disciplined, but very scrappy salesperson. I would go above and beyond to do my job really well. I acted sometimes quite fast, right? Because that's what I did. So if I was to go back, what would I teach my younger self? It would be probably to slow down a little bit. I've learned that by mistakes, some failures in my career. I would probably roll that in a little bit and take stock before I would make decisions or act on something that I thought would be the right decision to make, for sure. So I think that comes with experience, but like I said, I learned to do that through trial and error. For sure. It's not always about in leadership. It's not always about driving outcomes. It's as a sales leader, it's also about creating the conditions where outcomes become inevitable.
Oh yeah.
But not just for yourself, but for others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So, and maybe the closing question. So, what do you think will separate the truly exceptional sales leader over the next 5 years?
Yeah, as I said, the last couple of years, when I talk to companies and in my networking groups, I would say that if I had to use a word for the last 2 or 3 years, it's in sales, it is hesitation. Sales cycles are longer. I think they're longer by like 20%, 14, 20%, the stats I think I saw. Of course, B2B, because there's hesitation in the market. It doesn't matter what industry. So sales cycles have been longer. So, which doesn't mean to say that you push harder as a sales leader. What it means is that you need to be, I spoke about this earlier, you need to hit the target every single time. You need to be focused. You need to have the data, the metrics in order to understand your true customer, your customer profiles and what problems you're trying to solve. The scattergun approach for me has never really worked anyway, but it's more so now than ever about being laser focused. And having that discipline and putting that structure in place. Because without it, I still believe that this hesitation will last this year for sure. And without that structure, that discipline, and the foresight to really understand what's happening with your clients is necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely necessary.
Yeah. I agree. So overall, the economics in some kind of hesitation right now, right? So, and it's not just in the US, right? So it's like globally. And that reflects all the B2B organizations, right? So everyone has it. And like I also experience slowing down in sales as well. So I see longer cycles, definitely. It slides here and there for a quarter or two. So so I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when most founders and CEOs assume that sales execution is the issue, and I've seen that a lot during this time, and it's not. That's where you see the end result. You see it. You see what's happening in sales. Sometimes it's not the execution. It is that there are other things that are happening. And then where does it show up? It shows up in your sales results.
Yeah, and actually this is maybe the great place where AI can help to, measure things. So what is the influence of external factors? And where is like certain, skills or behavior of your SDRs or salespeople influence on the result, right?
Correct. That again has to be going back to discipline and behavior, more so now than ever. Having something, a tool in place that can help your sales teams become not more understanding is the wrong word, but more awareness of what's happening in the marketplace.
Yeah. Where am I and what's going on? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I absolutely enjoyed this conversation. So very deep ideas. Thank you, Terri, for your expertise, for sharing that with our listeners. Let's keep in touch. So always welcome. And hey, everyone. So if you need a virtual CRO or a sales leader, so Terri will be happy to help you with that. At least with some advice. You can find Terri in the comments below, the links to her profile on LinkedIn and contact. So please go ahead, contact Terri, and let's move on. So let's help each other to become better sales leaders.
Thank you, Dan. Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to not miss a new upload. This has been the Sales Champion Podcast. See you next time.